Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve. I hope you're all about to have a beautiful Thanksgiving weekend wherever you are in the world. But we have a major development going on in the nation of Brazil. Let me give you some background here so we're all up to speed on what's going on there. As many of you know, over the last month, mass demonstrations are shutting down the nation as patriots take to the streets in defiance of last month's presidential elections. We're talking tens of millions of Brazilians rising up against an election that they see as rigged against their candidate, the nationalist populist president, Jair Bolsonaro, in favor of an incurably corrupt former prison inmate and far-left ideologue, Lula da Silva. Now, if you don't know, back in 2017, Lula, who has long had a track record of supporting drug dealers and all kinds of illicit activity in Brazil, he was sentenced to 9 years in prison after being convicted in one of the biggest corruption scandals, not just in Brazil's history, I think in the world. It was called Operation Car Wash. It was crazy, but he was, up until that point, a very successful president. He served 2 terms during a relatively prosperous period in Brazil's history. So he does remain very popular, particularly among Brazil's poor, the lower class. But this corruption caught up with him, and he was sentenced to 7 years in prison. And that, of course, opened up the door for the rise of Jair Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro is Brazil's first nationalist populist candidate like ever. He's hailed as the Trump of the tropics. He won in a landslide in 2018. However, something rather sinister happened since then. What we have to understand is in the politics of Brazil, it's not so much the president that's been invested with supreme power, as it were. The presidential office is actually rather limited in terms of power and influence in Brazilian politics. The real power resides in Brazil's Supreme Court. The court itself is comprised of 11 justices, and of those 11, 7 were appointed by Lula, as well as Dilma Rousseff, who took over after Lula. Only 2 were appointed by Bolsonaro. The court is therefore seen by at least half the population as a puppet court of Lula. Whatever Lula wants, at least 7 of the 11 judges deliver. And one of them did just that, to the shock of millions, without any explanation. One of the Supreme Court justices overturned Lula's conviction, simply stating that it lacked necessary justification. And that in turn freed Lula not merely from jail, but to be able to once again run for president, which he did with the shameless full endorsement, the monolithic endorsement of the far-left woke neo-Marxist media, most especially our media here in the United States. And like what we saw here in 2020, the legacy media basically launched an information coup, giving 100% of their support to Lula, even pushing polls that showed Lula expected to win by like 15 points. Well, to the legacy media's shock, it didn't happen. The election did not happen the way they had planned. But before we get into that, gang, I just want to give you the resources you need to confidently and whimsically engage with your woke family and friends this holiday season and answer the big questions with real facts and scholarship. So today I'm so excited to be sharing the most exciting free gift ever for patriots. You can now access my personal resources for navigating through these crazy and turbulent times with the exact research I use every single day. It's over $4,000 worth of enriching, educational, encouraging content, and I'm giving it all to you absolutely free. Just click on the link below and sign up for a free 14-day trial to my Insiders Club. And you receive my personal resources. You're going to get my best-selling books. You're going to get deep dive training on canceling cancel culture once and for all. You're going to get my predictions for 2023. You're going to get a physical newsletter delivered to your door, and even more bonus content to help you live out a flourishing life of faith, family, and freedom. And if you click on that link below, between now and Sunday at 11:59 p.m., you're going to get invited to my special virtual Christmas get-together we're calling Scotch with Steve in December. I can't wait for it. I told you this was the most incredible free gift ever for Patriots, gang. Hands down, this is the best deal you'll find this Black Friday. So start your 14-day free trial now by clicking on the link below or going to insidersclub.turleytalks.com and get access to all the tools you need to be a courageous patriot this holiday season and beyond. So on election day, to the shock of the legacy media, Lula barely squeaked by, winning by just 1 percentage point in the runoffs. Needless to say, tens of millions of Brazilian patriots are not buying it. Millions of Brazilians have since taken to the streets in defiance of the outcome of that presidential election of the last month, with no sign that they'll stop until their concerns are decisively addressed. The problem in Brazil is that there's just no equivalent of an election oversight commission, so the people feel like that there's no recourse to challenge perceived election concerns, irregularities. And so now it's just been announced that Jair Bolsonaro himself has launched a formal challenge to the presidential election. Reuters is reporting that Bolsonaro is alleging that a number of votes from voting machines throughout the nation should be invalidated, again claiming that there were signs of, quote, irreparable malfunction in some electric voting machines. The complaint reads, quote, there were signs of serious failures that generate uncertainties and make it impossible to validate the results generated in older models of the voting machines. And as a result, they are urging that the votes from those models should be invalidated by the courts. Now, what happens from here is anyone's guess. Needless to say, given Brazil's judicial system, there isn't a lot of confidence in any of these concerns getting adequately addressed by millions upon millions of Brazilians. But regardless of what happens, we do have to understand that what's happening in Brazil is indicative of a much larger phenomenon that's been going on here in the United States as well. And that's the increasing sense of what scholars call delegitimation among our population. So what we have to understand is that the stability of any government rests on a concept that Weber referred to as legitimation. So from Weber onwards, early 20th century onwards, nation-state scholars have observed that the key characteristic of the modern nation-state is the monopolization of violence within a given territory, right? So as such, the nation-state is the symbol of ultimate authority with no power or principality, secular, religious, that stands above it. And the only way that such an entity can function socially, outside of tyrannical control, is through the process of legitimation. That's the ability of the state to persuade the vast majority of its citizens of its trustworthiness, that the various administrations and institutions and branches collectively work for the good and the favor of the vast majority of the people so that they voluntarily embrace it. The moment that confidence erodes, the stability of the government is in trouble. And that is exactly what we're seeing in Brazil, and of course, increasingly here in the United States over our own elections. And it's emphatically, and this needs to be stated, it's emphatically not because of what the legacy media is claiming. They're all saying that patriots are all anti-democratic and authoritarian. In fact, studies show democracy is more popular among patriots than ever before. The British scholar Matthew Goodwin has documented that definitively. Instead, patriots have increasingly lost faith in the legitimation necessary for a functioning state. And that loss of legitimation is not because of anti-democratic impulses, it's because of the growing gap, the alienation between the values, interests, and concerns of the permanent political class versus the values, interests, and concerns of the people who feel like their concerns are not they're not just being dismissed, they're being derided and derogated and mocked and ridiculed by the political and media outlets that are supposed to address them. When the media, the powers that be, whether they like it or not, tens of millions of Brazilians, as well as Americans, are outraged at a political system that appears to be so gamed against them and their concerns. And as long as that outrage remains unassuaged, the very legitimation needed for a functioning and stable government is only going to erode all the more. As always, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button, and you will definitely want to check out my latest video on all hell breaking loose during a live Fauci press conference. You're going to absolutely love it. Make sure to click on that link. I'll see you over there, and I wish all of you God's richest blessings this Thanksgiving season, wherever you are. We have so much to be thankful for, past, present, and future. God bless.